you with me so far?
Yes.
I hope so. All three underscore Jesus' point to be ready at all times for Christ's return. He tells them that he doesn't know in Luke's gospel the hour or the day in which these things will happen. Only the Father in heaven knows these things. But he does tell them, and he wants to underscore that it is important to be a faithful steward, because when he comes, he will judge all his people upon his return. So the stories in each parable of this trio describes a certain and sudden return of an important figure. And one is the owner of a household. He comes back to find out whether or not his servants had been faithful or unfaithful. I remember a time when I was just 16 years old, and my mom and dad wanted to take a little vacation without me. Go figure that. And so they took a week off. It was during the summer, and I was driving at the time. And my dad said, "Son, you take care of the house. It's yours. But would you please cut the grass before I get back home?" It was already a foot or so high, and I haven't done that. It was my responsibility to cut about an acre with a push mower. And I said, "Dad, I'll take care of it. Don't you worry about it." They were to return on Friday. Well, Thursday evening, after I had gone to the creek and come back, I looked and as I pulled up in the driveway, Dad was out there with a lawnmower cutting the grass, and I told him that I would cut. Now, I had good intentions of waking up early Friday morning and cutting that grass before they came home, but they came home early. I went to grab the mower to him and said, "Dad, I'll get that. I was going to cut it." He said, "That's okay. I'll take care of it. You just go in the house." Wow. I was not found faithful upon his return. I had good intentions, but I didn't follow through. I think this is what Jesus is teaching. The owner of the house, the bridegroom is going to return with a shout, and then the master will return. And upon the return of these figures, it became apparent that some people were ready for his return, but others were unprepared for him to come back altogether, as in the case of my father. And each parable of this trio of parables conclude with an evaluation of the people ready or unready. Read the parables by the key figure who is going to return. And the returning figure was the sole evaluator of their deeds. If you'll notice, there's something that he talks about. Next slide, please. He said, so the main points of the first three parables are, if you're writing notes, be faithful to Jesus. Amen?
Amen.
And then be alert for his return, because you don't know when that's going to happen. And then invest your talents for Jesus' kingdom in order to receive the greatest possible reward in life. Now, perhaps one of the reasons Jesus had for telling these four parables together here in Matthew 24 and 25 was for his disciples was to affirm that it is in people's best interest to believe in Jesus. Think about this for a moment. Someone who may have read these parables or heard these parables might hesitate about accepting Christ's offer when they consider the painful consequences of being unfaithful. They might reflect, why assume the risk in being a follower of Jesus? Because if I mess up and fail, it's not going to turn out well for me. It's sort of like the attitude that I had as a young adult. Because I always heard about this cosmic battle between Jesus, between God and the devil. you know, sort of like the Job story. And I'm like, God, whatever you want to do is okay. You work it out with the devil and just leave me out of it. I'm just saying, check out, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, why assume the risk that I might prove to be unfaithful and endure such pain? Why bother being a believer in the first place? Why not avoid the risk altogether? They might be tempted against following Jesus on the account of possibly suffering those consequences if they fail. However, listen carefully. That's not a good plan. Because in this final parable of the Olivet Discourse, Jesus makes it clear that everyone will be judged either as a sheep, a believer, or a goat, an unbeliever. Okay, it's important then to understand that some teachings of the parable show that the way we treat others is really important because Jesus identifies with everyone. This is important to understand. If people reject or ignore the needs of others, they are rejecting and ignoring God. Are you with me?
Amen.
Now, I didn't write this. Don't get upset with me. That's the main theme here. Likewise, in blessing others, people will also be a blessing to God. Someone once asked me, after reading and studying the parables, does this mean that there is salvation, our salvation is based upon our works? Because the parable ties the sheep and the goat's behavior to their eternal destiny. It's easy to walk away assuming that our eternal destiny rests upon what we do or fail to do. But that's not really the point Jesus is driving at. If you would go to the next slide, because it says in John's gospel, makes it clear, Jesus said, "But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave them the right to become children of God." Right? But however, we can't miss the important message here, especially as we approach Lent. And this is why this passage is such a wonderful catalyst.